So welcome back to the State of Affairs podcast. Don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel. And we have some of the quality discussions already to our credit. We'll from the IR, from international relations, actually geopolitics, international security, and policy making. And we have some outstandingly great people who we have invited over the time on our podcast series on the YouTube. Today, before I introduce you to the guest that we have today, I would like to welcome you all back to the show. We just took a break because I was busy with the research, with my own research paper. So today we have with us one of the outstandingly talented and a brilliant writer with us. He's somebody who is a founder and CEO of the Usana's Foundation, a very good policy think tank. Mr. Abhinav Pandya, who has been also advisor to the former governor of Jammu and Kashmir, Mr. Satyapal Malik. Uh, welcome, sir.
Thank you so much, Maharaj. It's a real pleasure and an honor to be here on your show.
I will be talking about the issues, especially the topic pertains to the fall of Kabul and
Yes.
what actually I and most of the people don't understand is the hasteful withdrawal of the U.S. Number one, number two. Despite the 20 years training, despite the presence of U.S. on the Afghan soil, despite having a large and huge army, security forces at the ground, despite all the support from the foreign countries, despite NATO being present on the ground in Afghanistan, still Kabul fell just within 5 days time period. How do you understand the developments in Kabul, sir? Over to you.
Okay. Thank you so much, Maharaj. It's a very, very relevant and a critical topic for discussion. I've been following all these things for last, I would say, many months, and I also wrote an article, a detailed piece last year on this subject on the US withdrawal and Taliban for Sunday Guardian. Recently, also, I wrote one very important piece on its fallouts for India for the national interest. But coming back to a question, I think we should go back to the year 2001, after September 11, when the Americans decided to intervene in Afghanistan. So that was, I would say, that was a historic step. But then Americans failed, and they failed miserably, in identifying the right enemy. They attacked wrong enemy. They intervened in Afghanistan, thinking, just to dismantle dismantle Taliban regime, and with the objective of not letting Afghanistan being used for any terror attack against America. Okay? This was the purpose. The nation building was not the original purpose. But then, after they intervened, they completely sidelined the fact that Taliban was a progeny, it was a child of Pakistan. Pakistan was funding it, Pakistan was sponsoring it, Pakistan was training it. And even like, in the immediate aftermath of the American intervention, Pakistan actually like openly they said that yes, we are with you, Americans, but behind their back, they were evacuating all these, hardcore and very battle-hardened Taliban fighters and the Al Qaeda fighters. There's this very famous operation called Operation Evil Airlift. Christine Fair has discussed about it, often in her book and many of her articles. And it said that in the Kunduz province, Pakistani government, when I say Pakistan, I mean it was officially done by the GHQ Rawalpindi army and all. They evacuated some of the hardcore, battle-hardened Taliban and Al Qaeda terrorists, and they were given safe havens in Pakistan. And then later on, if you come, just a moment, I need to switch on this. Yes. Later on, they appointed. I don't remember the exact the which corps takes care of this. So there's this. It sits in Peshawar. So the person who was appointed as its chief, he's a lieutenant general rank officer. Okay, and his last name was some Orakzai, something like that. Okay, he was a great Taliban sympathizer. So right from the beginning, Pakistan was sheltering all the Al Qaeda terrorists and all these Taliban people. Okay, And in 1999, when this Kandahar hijacking took place, okay, they did not divert the Peshawar corps. Why? Because they wanted to provide safe entry to the hardcore Taliban fighters. Okay? And in that, confusion, only this fellow Osama bin Laden, migrated to Pakistan. Now, this is a clear fact that Pakistan was supporting, this Taliban, and Americans spent huge money in training, arming, okay, but they could not identify the right enemy. Carlota Gall, she's a New York Times journalist. She has written very explicitly in her book that that Pakistan is the real enemy, the terror factory, the jihad factory. Okay, and I mean, since they did not spot the right enemy, after that, they spent and they wasted billions and billions of dollars of the American taxpayers' money in targeting some foot soldiers of Taliban in Afghanistan. So that was not going to pay anything in return. Okay, and now coming back to 2020 and 2021. Okay, over all these years, Pakistan, Americans gave huge military and financial aid to Pakistan, which Pakistan used in training Taliban fighters and sheltering them and running this jihad factory. Okay. Now, coming back to 2020, in this period particularly, what happened was that Americans, they wanted to get out, and they were expecting, that somehow we should, if we can facilitate some deal that when we get out, there is some interim arrangement in Afghanistan, and maybe after an year or two, this if this government falls or if it is taken by Taliban, we don't care. So that's why they appointed Zalmay Khalilzad as the envoy. Zalmay Khalilzad, he's basically an Afghan origin fellow and American diplomat, who has served as ambassador in Afghanistan. But then he's a very ambitious fellow, and most of the people are failing to understand his role in this entire fiasco. So I'm telling you something very internal, which I've come across from my very I would say important sources. Uh, ISI chief and Mr. Faiz Hamid and Pak Army chief General Bajwa gave access to Zalmay Khalid. They didn't give access to anyone else. He used this access, this very exclusive access in Washington DC, to convey that if you want anything done with Taliban in Pakistan, then it's me only who can do it, because ISI generals are not willing to meet anyone. Okay? It's me only, like who can strike a deal for you. Okay? And then I am the son of the soil, so I understand Taliban Afghanistan much better than anyone else. Americans, by then, the American deep state, they also had an idea that this man was playing some sort of a double, thing. Okay, but then they couldn't do much. When Biden came, Zalmay Khalilzad was restored back in his position. Okay, and can you guess who was the first one to receive this news? It was Pak Army and ISI. They were the first people to get this news. Okay? And then they did their best, to just raise the stature, political and diplomatic stature of Zalmay Khalilzad in Washington DC, because they wanted him to continue. And after that, Americans, since they kind of knew that this fellow was playing a little double side, okay, but then they thought that why not use him for for getting some fine good settlement. Okay. So then they were expecting that Zalmay Khalilzad would secure an honorable exit for Americans from Afghanistan. An honorable exit means when Americans leave, there is no chaos, there is no violence, there is a mixed interim government in Afghanistan, which has elements from Taliban and which has elements from the previously existing Afghan government. And once Americans go out, maybe after a year or maybe after a year and a half, Taliban takes over. That was American expectation, because they knew that last year when they signed the Doha Accords, after that, ultimately Taliban was going to win. But then they just wanted that Taliban wins maybe after a decent gap after they leave. But then here, Zalmay Khalilzad, he fooled Americans. He fooled the American deep state. He was doing ISI's bidding, and he bought off all the chief leadership of Afghan government. Okay, and played one against the other, promised different things to each one of them. So there was complete confusion. There was massive corruption. Army got no proper instructions. There was no coordination, and then army didn't put up any resistance at all, because they thought that their leaders, their political leadership was completely sold out. They struck some kind of a deal. And then even the Chinese wanted that Americans should get humiliated, and they should get some kind of a bloody nose. No? And then another angle, Pakistan wanted to humiliate India also, because India has developed major, if not strategic, then at least developmental, financial, diplomatic interests in Afghanistan. So they thought that if this is done in such a drastic, such a, I would say, an aggressive manner, this India America duo will be majorly insulted. So I mean, this is the, I mean, just trying to cut long story short, but in turn I see it as ISI's game plan, something which was well engineered, and I must say they did a job very well.
Uh, thank you, sir, for your initial remarks on this and such an elaborate, analysis of the whole fall of the Kabul. There are certain things. See, Taliban as a force is a coalition. There are different variants, different factions fighting under its umbrella. uh, what if tomorrow a power sharing arrangement isn't acceptable to the whole factions that are fighting on the ground, that had conquered or invaded the whole Afghan soil? And then there is a resistance also under the erstwhile Northern Alliance. And then also we have issues like most of the people or the analysts call that this Taliban 2.0 is pulled down inside and outside both. So different countries, be that Russia, be that China, be that Pakistan, be that any other country of the region or at the global level, have stakes in Afghanistan. They will approach the problem accordingly. But then I would like you to delve a bit deeper on this question that why did the whole Afghan establishment collapse? Such a fortnightly collapse from the frontiers to the Kabul. We'll come to the question of the ethnic minorities there and the human rights violations and the issue of women later in the on the show. But firstly, you deal with this thing, sir, that why such hasteful withdrawal and why such a sudden collapse of the whole machinery that since 20 years was at work.
Well, so the hasteful withdrawal, well, I must say that Americans have a very poor sense of strategic understanding. You know, Ryan Crocker, Ambassador Ryan Crocker, who served as the American envoy to Afghanistan, has clearly, like, explicitly written that we Americans lack strategic patience. On very rare occasions, America has displayed that kind of patience. Otherwise, most of the times, they have failed. Okay? This time they thought that now it's been long enough, and we should focus on China. We The real battle is the Indo Pacific. So let's get out of this place, and just come out with a bang that America is back. So I see it as a major, I would say, uh, the big, lack of strategic understanding. It is also a step in haste, reflecting some kind of deep-rooted insecurities in the American strategic establishment about the perpetual downfall, the phase of perpetual downfall into which the America is entering or seems to be entering, and uh, rolling on a little faster than it earlier, than the situation earlier. So this is a misjudgment, miscalculation, I would say. Now, why it is a miscalculation, we'll come to that later. But then the hasty collapse, right? That was your second question. So, well, I must say that, some of the tactical reasons for the hasty collapse are the Afghan government was very corrupt government. Okay, so they were, taking salaries for the ghost soldiers, and literally people were so frustrated, and people were so, this. I mean, they were very upset with the government. This government had lost popular legitimacy and credibility. Okay? So there was one reason why people were not very, positive or very optimistic with this government. Though, I mean, it did talk about democracy and human rights and female gender rights and all. No, but then when it comes to real working, they did not. I mean, it was very corrupt. Okay, and with Taliban, people. I mean, whether we agree or not, but at least among the general people, there is always a perception that when it's about Taliban government, it's rule based. I mean, they are very good at implementing discipline, and with the harsh laws and all. So they feel that they are a little more stable. And I guess Americans failed to understand the Afghan society also, the kind of democracy which they wanted to impose in Afghanistan. No, it was just similar to the Westminster model or the Western model. But then Afghan society is very different. You have to understand the societal nuances, the nuances of the traditions, and then the tribal culture, okay, the ethnic issues in Afghanistan. Then only you can come out with a legitimate governmental structure which is acceptable to everyone. The government which was in Afghanistan, it was seen just as a puppet regime of the USA by everyone. Okay, no, not just locally, but even the internationally. It was seen as some kind of people just planted from America, and it was just skin deep without any much deeper reach. Okay, and then coming to the army. So I mean, it's really surprising that the same army, this army has been fighting Taliban for last 20 years. Okay, very bravely. It has the same Pashtun people, like, which you find in Taliban. Okay, but then what happened? The problem is, the army, the US raised, uh, there are many reasons. So first, the US raised this army in a very American Western manner. I mean, they are not used to working without the air support, and Taliban generally goes for guerrilla war tactics. So after the Americans withdrew, I mean, after they stopped providing air support, these people, I mean, they had no clue what to do, and normally they wouldn't go without an air support to any encounter site or any conflict with the real Taliban side. Okay, but then Taliban is a battle hardened force. They are used to fighting guerrilla force. Secondly, the army also had major corruption issues. The major political leadership of Afghanistan, they were drawing tons and tons of money from America as salaries for the ghost soldiers. They kept on changing the leadership of the army. I guess at the last moment, the army chief was changed. And army had, I mean, they felt that they had no clear instructions. I mean, there was complete confusion, lack of coordination. So they didn't put up a fight. And thirdly, I would say that since Pakistan is the main force behind, I mean, it's not just Taliban. I mean, when we are talking about Afghanistan, okay, we are not talking about the Americans versus Taliban. Taliban is just a ragtag group of some, rebels believe in barbaric medieval values. But then, until and unless they don't have the state support behind them, they couldn't have done much. Here, China was behind them, though China was not in the real action, but China was certainly providing tons and tons of money and aid to America for these sabotage and subversive activities. And China was providing money to Pakistan, and Pakistan was directly involved in training, supporting. We heard that 10,000 cadres of Jaish and Lashkar also migrated to Afghanistan to fight with the. I mean, to facilitate the smooth and rapid, quick entry of Taliban into the power. Then the Pak army people were also fighting alongside the Taliban, dressed up as Afghan Taliban people. So without Pakistan's support, this couldn't have come along. So I mean, two very clear reasons: Americans failed to understand, the government had no legitimacy, and most importantly, Pakistan's support.
Yeah, that's well said, actually, sir. There is also something that in 1990, when USSR withdrew from Afghanistan, and in 2021, when is withdrawing from Afghanistan in the last leg of it, uh, what's constant is that Taliban is constant, war is constant, civilian strife is constant, peace is an illusion yet, it's a dream yet. What do you think, Mr. Pandey, that maybe some things may have changed on the ground? How do you view Taliban or Afghanistan in 1990 and Afghanistan now in 2021?
Well, first of all, many people say that, I mean, Taliban is a graveyard of empires. It has become a cliche. I don't really subscribe to it, frankly speaking, because see, Afghanistan is the graveyard of empire, not Taliban. Afghanistan has been ruled by foreigners, okay, and Maharaja Ranjit Singh ruled over Afghanistan, okay, and then I mean, even Brits captured it for a while. Okay, there were clashes and fights. That's a different thing. But then, if you look at Afghanistan's history, the state has been in conflict, strife-torn state, and mostly under the turbulent and turmoil possession of foreign powers. Here, in this case, the superpower didn't lose it. They didn't. They just they could not find the wrong enemy. Once again, I would say, like, after the this twin tower attack, if Americans, after ousting the Taliban from Kabul, if they had gone after Pakistan and taken a major action against ISI generals, and even to the extent of disintegrating Pakistan, okay, because Pakistan is a real jihad factory, if you say, if they had gone to the extent of disintegrating Pakistan, okay, and later not intervening in Iraq, today we would be having a totally different world. I can tell you, I can bet you, like, if this Pakistan had been weakened, and all their resources dried up, and a firm control set up over Pakistan with the help of Indians, American and Indian joint control. In that case, Afghanistan would have been a peaceful state. Afghanistan would have been a stable state. You go back to 1970s Afghanistan, okay, you can find Ahmad Zahir singing some of the very westernized songs. You can just check out the dresses the females are wearing, check out their colleges and universities. So I guess when we say that it's in a perpetual conflict and all, we also have to see that the actors and the forces behind that. Now it's a weak state, weak power. It doesn't have its own existence, and Pakistan's only interest lies in, like, sending all those radical, jihadist forces in Afghanistan. So there cannot be any peace. And if Americans had not intervened in Iraq, your Middle East would have been peaceful. No Arab Spring would have taken place. No ISIS would have come. If Americans had gone after Pakistan, Afghanistan would have been peaceful. And China would have been a very weak country, much weaker than what it is now, because there wouldn't have been any CPEC.
That's actually my next point, or a
Yes,
question we can say, that how do you view the developments in Afghanistan and the larger West Asia that we say, or Middle
sure.
East? How is it going to impact the geopolitical developments, security concerns of the region? How is it going to play out in
Yeah.
the larger region of West
Yes.
Asia?
So now coming to that, again, a very, very interesting question. So now, see, this has changed some very major dynamics. Okay, well, with the rise of China, we were already viewing America, as some kind of a power in decline. But the way Americans withdrew from Afghanistan, okay, it has established more or less in a very firm manner that this is a power in perpetual decline, and you cannot rely on the American support. So, as Brahma Chelani rightly put it in his Project Syndicate article, Pax Americana is dead. Okay. So now, when Trump said that, I mean, we are going to be isolationist, and Biden said that, well, America is back. I can say that this is the real America shrinking within its four walls. This is a real withdrawal, because now, see, Americans are gone, and this whole region will be controlled by Russians. Russians are going to be very powerful player. China is going to be very powerful player in the region. China wants to, keep Taliban in good books, because they want peace in their Xinjiang Uyghur region. They want control over the lithium, cobalt, and copper deposits in Afghanistan. Okay, Pakistan is going to be a powerful player. Iran is going to be a very, very powerful player, because Iran has proxies in Taliban, and Iran has good ties with Taliban. Okay, over the, I mean, later, like, maybe, I mean, 2005 onwards, I guess, when Iranian American relations soured, Iran was supporting Taliban against America. Okay. Turkey is going to be a very, critical player, as have seen that Turkey is Pakistan's good friend, and Turkey is, willing to establish strong bases in Afghanistan, okay, with its paramilitary forces like Sadat, who are going to impart training to not only to Taliban but also to the terror groups which are coming to Kashmir. So you see, all these new geopolitical actors are going to be very active in this region. In the Middle East also, we'll see the impact. So in the Middle Eastern field, Saudi is losing its, leadership over the Islamic world. Okay, and since Pakistan is in the Turkish camp, this Taliban victory has also emboldened many people who are, I would religiously fundamentalist, okay, because the message which this Taliban victory has conveyed is that this is the victory of Islam. People who were staying true to their faith, and they could oust the superpower. This is the projection. This is what they are projecting. So this is very strongly impacting many like lay Muslim followers, in various parts. I don't blame them for this, because the way this is projected on social media and the Urdu, mainstream discourse, is that this is the victory of the faith. Okay? And you have these big clerics speaking. Okay, you can see that in Kashmir. There's this huge, very strong sense of motivation. Okay, in various other parts of the world also. Here, if you just go back a few days, many intellectuals were tweeting about it. Ghazala Wahab, I think she made a tweet that, I mean, which was more or less supportive of Taliban. Okay, so this will provide legitimacy to Pakistan. This will provide legitimacy to Pak army as the new leader of the Ummah. So in the Middle East, we will see that, the old leadership of, run by UAE, and Saudi Arab, Kuwait. Okay, they are just going to be like, in a state of decline, and they are American supporters. Okay? So now that way,
And
no, I mean, these dynamics will change.
now coming to the main point of the whole Taliban factions that are fighting under the umbrella of
Yes, and
Islamic
sorry,
Emirate.
one more question, one more
Sure,
thing which
sure.
I wanted to add. And secondly, so I just mentioned about the geopolitical equations which will change, and we'll see that these new countries like Pakistan, China, Russia, Iran, Turkey, with all their dictatorial values, will be playing a decisive role in the global geopolitics, and that will also change the norms. It will impact the norms. Like until recently, under the American leadership, we were praising democracy, human rights, multiculturalism. Now you have this gang of dictatorial and rogue states. Okay, they will change the global norms also. So your institutions of global governance like UN, democracy, human rights, they will be discredited. And the norms of dictatorship, norms of controlling and controlling the freedom of expression, surveillance regimes, they will gain currency. Secondly, because of Taliban's rise, the whole jihadist forces will again strengthen. The Afghanistan is going to become the hub of the global and transnational terrorist groups like ISIS, Al Qaeda, and your India Kashmir-centric terror groups. So this is going to be a major hub, and this will have a major impact on India also, because some of the groups like Jaish-e-Mohammed, Haqqani Network, they are all believing in the hardcore Deobandi ideology, and they are like brothers in arms with Taliban. So, and
and
this will last part, just a minute. This will also increase the global drug trade, because Americans are going to sanction Taliban, and freeze their assets so that to get improve enhance their finances. They will multiply, and they will increase the drug sales and the drug business. And in this, even the state actors will participate. I'm sure, I can tell you, Turkey wants to benefit from Afghanistan's drug trade, and this is one of the key reasons why they are looking for the Kabul airport. So in that case, I guess all these warlords will keep fighting, and there will be a lot of infractions and fighting. And if there is no interference, certainly Northern Alliance is also going to put a major fight. Okay, but then I feel that Taliban has been brought into power. Okay, and it is controlling huge tracts. Okay, there is a strong possibility that because of the support of all these state actors, that Taliban will gain a stronghold foothold in Panchi area also. But see, the issue is that now Afghanistan is another scene of great game. Okay, so Taliban will be kept in power, and by these different foreign state actors. They are in agreement. Okay, Turkey, Pakistan, China, Iran. Okay? So all these states, and Russia, they are in agreement that we want this region, Afghanistan, okay, to be free of America. Okay, we want this region to have some stable semblance of government under Taliban. Okay, even if they are doing implementing Sharia, we don't bother. Okay, but they have to be in power with some stability. And thirdly, we want up space in this country to get benefit from all the economic resources of this region. Okay, so for all these purposes, these countries, they form an anti-American bloc, anti-India bloc, and they are in agreement. Okay, so I think that Taliban will be kept in power. I mean, if they are left on themselves, they wouldn't, because it's in the nature of the Afghan people to fight, and civil war is like in the, I would say, the genetic. People are genetically disposed. It's in the nature. Okay, it's in the history. But then I guess Taliban and all these people, they will be kept in power by some of these crucial prominent state actors, through some diplomatic arrangement.
one important thing also that I would like to hear from you, sir, is that how is the minority issue and the human rights issue going to just is it and it's is it on the has it the end of the life kind of a thing, or is it at the dead end, or is it even an issue now in the Afghanistan that will be ruled according to the laws of Sharia or according to the laws that will be prescribed by the Taliban and its affiliates?
So for some time now, since Taliban is seeking legitimacy, and Pakistan feels that Americans have been insulted enough, and now it's a time to just give them some break, and not insult them anymore. So they will be keeping a low profile, and they'll be waiting for countries to give legitimacy to Taliban. But after a while, your all foreign correspondents will leave Afghanistan, and there'll be a complete media blackout. After that, strict imposition of Sharia will take place, and using those Sharia measures, Pakistan and Pakistan supported Taliban, they will kill all those people who are opposing them. So all these Pashtun Tahaffuz movement leaders, and I mean, they will be killed. So there will be political killings first, and then there will be Sharia-based punishments and Sharia-based, I would say, extra what policies. So in that case, minorities, they have no life, absolutely no life. And you can see there are hardly any minorities in Afghanistan. Okay? Whatever minorities are there in Pakistan, they have zero life. It's worse than animals. Okay? You can see. I mean, your blasphemy law being used to kill them, like that case of Aisha Bibi and all. So, and the life of the females, okay. Now that is something which will be a very tough call, because I mean they will be implementing strict Sharia, so females will have a very bad life. and you can't do much about it because the countries who are supporting Taliban and who have a clout, like who have a diplomatic and financial clout in Afghanistan, they also believe in such dictatorial values and brutality. I mean, you see China, what it has done to Uyghur Muslims in its own in its own territory. Like, they are being brutally persecuted. They are being killed. So all these countries who are having a say in Afghanistan, they are dictatorial powers. They are rogue states. They support terrorist organizations, and they are against freedom of expressions. They are surveillance states. So their values are different. So even if Taliban is engaging in some kind of extreme brutalities towards females and all, and as long as these things are kept secret, and as long as Taliban is fulfilling the wishes and interests of all these major powers, nothing will happen. So it's a no-go zone for minorities and
and
females.
and then for the students of who are actually evaluating and analyzing the foreign policy prospects,
Mhm.
India has maintained a consistent strategic silence, or
Yes.
strategic not strategic silence, rather it's a
Mhm.
strategic patience.
Yes.
Most of the people write on that.
Mhm.
What are the prospects for India, that it's democratic, and the developmental prospects, that it had invested a lot of capital in the Afghanistan for its development, like its parliament, its railways, its roads, and its education, even its healthcare.
Mhm.
Now, after this settles down somewhere, say for example, after 2, 3, 4 weeks, or 6 months, or a year,
Mhm.
uh, should India maintain a consistent patience with that, or it has to make certain alterations within its foreign policy echelons?
Or well, India's case, I will see it at two levels. First will be a typical, very ideal standard level, what it should have been since 1950, and the second would be a more pragmatic scenario, which we are facing right now. Oh, we knew that Pakistan was formed, on some basis of deep-rooted animosity with India, and Pakistan was always scared about this, this very small breadth of that state, and Pakistan wanted to find strategic depth in Afghanistan. But Afghanistan, since Pakistan was made on Afghan land, all these, this Durand line problem and all, so Afghanistan never had any sympathy for Pakistan, and they were scared that Americans are being they are loved in Afghanistan. So I mean, the Indians may outsmart them anytime. And Pakistan felt threatened and felt squeezed in by India from Afghanistan on the western frontier and India on the eastern frontier. So that's why in 1970s they started this, I mean, expanding into Afghanistan and to build it as a satellite state to acquire that strategic depth. Ideally, India, Indian leaders and diplomats should have that kind of vision. Like they should have had that kind of vision in early 1950s, and they should have raised and they should have invested majorly in Afghanistan and created strategic assets in Afghanistan, and stakes in Afghanistan. If that had been the case, we would have been seeing a very different history of Afghanistan, because India and Russia were friends, and things would have been different. But I'm not getting into that because I guess we don't have that kind of strategic culture and all. Okay? Now the thing is that India was with Americans, over the last 20 years, when India made some goodwill soft power investments, like, they built dams and they built parliament houses and all. Some people, like, I guess, they just try to exaggerate that India built some very strong strategic space in Afghanistan, which is not the case. Let me be very frank and very clear. India did not invest in any warlord factions and all, so India did not create any strategic stakes. India was doing goodwill investment mostly, building bridges, schools, dams, which, okay, fine, as a responsible power, as a democratic power, and a close to, I would say, a very close neighbor of Afghanistan, India should have done, and we appreciate that. Okay, they were assisting Americans. We never put our foots on the ground, our boots on the ground. So when people say that with this victory, India lost or this, there's nothing like that. We never went to conquer that country. Okay? We were never aiming to create some strategic proxies in that country. We never wanted. Whether this is good or bad, it's a different thing. Okay, that's a different question. But initially, we never did. Okay. Now, if Americans are out, and if the Taliban is not willing to take care of India's the assets which India created, then it's their bloody problem. We built assets, for the benefit of the common people. The old parliament house, bridges, buildings, they will be used by Taliban, of whichever government is in power, they'll be used by them. And if we feel that, I mean, our people, our assets are being attacked, we will not work there. That is one part of the story. Second part, With Taliban coming in power, we will face some terrorism related problems because the Kashmir centric terror groups like Jaish-e-Mohammed, they are very closely linked to Al Qaeda. They are very closely linked to Taliban because Jaish-e-Mohammed and Taliban, they believe in same ideology. When Masood Azhar came to India, he first visited Deoband even before Srinagar. They are linked to Sirajuddin Haqqani network. Haqqani network is a very direct proxy of ISI. So now these people feel emboldened that Taliban has won, and I mean, Jaish soldiers also fought alongside Taliban in Afghanistan. They will have a better, like, shelter houses in Afghanistan. So they will send more and more, those hardcore Afghan war veterans, I mean, the Taliban fighters, alongside Jaish people, okay, or maybe alongside Islamic State of Khorasan province people to Kashmir. And so we'll have more encounters. These people will come with some new kinds of American weapons like M4, and which they are already coming. Okay, some more advanced missiles like Stinger missiles and RPGs and all. I mean, they're already doing that. This is one factor. Secondly, Pakistan will shift all the terror training camps from POK to Afghanistan, because then it will provide them plausible deniability, because they want that, because FATF is madly after Pakistan, and Pakistan wants to enhance and clean its image in the eyes of the world community. So they will do that also. Thirdly, I feel that especially with the rise of Taliban, the Jaish-e-Mohammed people and all these other terrorist groups, they will try to expand in the other parts of India too. Wherever you have a good Devbandi influence in the other parts of India, they will try to expand. And the current narrative of Hindutva in India also, I mean, because we have BJP government in power, okay, and and many places certain incidents of mob lynching have taken place. Even on the media, you find a very polarized discourse. Okay, when it comes to Hindu-Muslim relations and all. Okay, so all these things, I mean, in reality, whether it's there or not, I mean, we don't know. Okay, fine. In reality, the picture is completely different. Like, Modi government has been in power for last 8-9 years. Okay, even now you have Popular Front of India, which is a very extreme radical organization on the lines of Muslim Brotherhood. They are functioning very openly. Okay, they are functioning without any restrictions. So in reality, there is nothing. But then in the world of rhetoric, the Hindutva narrative has become very strong. So these, especially the Taliban affiliated terror groups like Jaish-e-Mohammed and all, they will use this rhetoric to recruit more and more people in Pakistan, saying that your Muslim brothers are in danger, and they will try to reach out to the Deobandi Muslims or even normal Muslims in the other parts of various parts of India, saying that you are being alienated, you are being discriminated against, your life is in danger under the rule of the Hindu government or something like that. So please join our organization. So I mean, these are the security threats which we will face.
Thank you for such a wonderful analysis of whole and the explanation of this whole sort of consequences for the region and ever see. As there, to my limited understanding, is that
Hmm.
the whole region, and particularly Afghanistan and Afghans in particular, are staring at something that is so bleak, that's so gloomy. It seems that for people like you rightly mentioned, that the cliche of graveyard of empires is not. It's not like that. It's the graveyard of the Afghans rather. Let's put it
Yes.
that way.
Yes.
And the prospects for the region don't seem too much good. The dictatorial tendencies, the state and the non-state actors, and the religious extremism will be seeing its new high in the region and across in Afghanistan. Will be a new laboratory for most of the non-state actors
Certainly.
to operate. Thank you, Mr. Abhinav, for coming to the session. It was absolutely fantastic and an honor and a privilege to have you on the show today. Uh, Most of the students and most of the viewers actually will benefit out of this, whosoever is involved into the IR discourse or the geopolitics or some other subparts of it. Thank you for being with us. We'll have you some other time again,
Thank
hopefully,
you.
and